Welcome into the victorious edition of the Locked On Packers postgame show. My name is Brandon Snide. I am your host this evening. It wasn't easy. It sure wasn't pretty at times, but man, oh man, does it feel good to be victorious again.
Man, winning games like that on the road, that just builds your confidence as the season goes.
Go Pack Go! It's the Packers Squad. Everything Green Bay Packers every week, covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Titletown. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the frozen tundra with all the cheeseheads, the Packers Squad show starts now.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Wherever you find podcasts, you will certainly find the Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for the fans who know what happened. Thankfully, they won today. They want to know why and how. As always, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Coach, the Packers getting a much needed win today. We will, of course, break it all down here. We'll discuss our turning points later on in this one. We'll hand out the game balls, and later on, Coach, as he always does after Packer games, will take us to class. But let's dive right into it. Peter Bukowski, usually part of the show. It is his show after all, but he was in attendance for the game with his son, who was at his first Packers game, and they won. So Peter now has to take his kid to every Packers game from here on out this season as the Packers get the 27-20 win on the road against the Giants in New York. Coach, it was windy. It was sloppy at times. A lot of Packers got injured in this one. Wow. What is your gut reaction after this one for the green and gold?
Well, it's very, very obvious from the start on how everybody wants to play the Packers now. I mean, it started a couple weeks ago with Carolina. Say, we're going to run the ball. We're going to try to possess the ball as much as we can. And we saw it again last week, and today for sure we saw it with just monster long drives, especially in the second half. What did they have? A 16-play, the first possession.
15 plays.
9 minutes.
15, 16, and they moved the chains. Yeah, they absolutely did.
35 minutes of possession. You know, and usually possessions, it's not a thing that you would have for winning or losing the games, but that is everybody's formula now, is to hold the ball longer and take away possessions from the Packers offense.
Yeah, it was I will say this, Coach, and we'll talk about the injuries. Jordan Love was injured in this one. He did return. We'll talk about Jordan Love's injury. Josh Jacobs, Coach, going out in this one with a knee injury, did not return, was ruled relatively quick as being out of this game, which is usually never a good sign. Romeo Doubs was dinged up throughout the course of this game as well. Quay Walker also dropped in this game with a stinger into the shoulder. We saw Aaron Mosby on the kick return get injured. He did return. So the Packers were dropping like flies in this one, Coach. Am I crazy if I'm a fan, Coach, and I'm waking up or I'm watching that game and now I'm enjoying the rest of my Sunday? Because noon games, Coach, when you live,
are they the best? I love them.
Are they not the best, Coach? Like, come on,
love them.
You got the rest of the day to relax and enjoy. But am I crazy, Coach, as a fan, that just being happy that they got out of New York with a win? And I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit on Mike Kafka was, named the interim head coach after Brian Daboll was fired from the New York Giants. Jameis Winston, this is all within a span of like 48 hours in New York. Jameis Winston gets anointed as the starter. Jackson Dart out of this game with a concussion. Is it crazy as a fan, Coach? Like, yes, it wasn't a pretty game. It wasn't a great performance. There's some good things to take away, but just getting a victory in itself is a good thing and something to be happy about.
It always is, because just look at on the flip side of that. If they hadn't pulled that game out here at the end, how bad you'd be feeling. So, I mean, a win's a win, and you're never going to go look at the end of the season. It's like, man, we just won that game by whatever. So it's always a good thing to get a win. I thought that Kafka, I thought he did a great job as a head coach for the very first time. I mean, he played to win. He went out on fourth down and got it 3 out of 4 times. And I'll tell you another thing that I was impressed with that, because he's not going to get the job but he didn't play like scared, or he didn't coach scared.
Going forward on fourth down multiple times in a drive, I think 3 times eventually.
Yeah,
I think they finally stopped them with the Micah Parsons sack in the third quarter. So you're right. And the message, Coach, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. And we'll break down more of this game as we go on. But is that not like everybody looks at the Giants record and they're like, they're now 2-9 after the Packers win today, 27-20. The Packers improving to 6-3-1 on the season. The Packers just a sloppy performance all around, right? I mean, Coach,
the drops
on both sides of the ball, Coach, both sides of the 4 or 5 dropped interceptions. Javon Bullard probably has a pick 6. If I think it was McDuffie that just levels him and the ball pops out. So on both sides of the ball, they're not being able to secure the ball. That was a big storyline in this one. Dobbs right away didn't waste any time in this one to drop passes. But when you play a team, Coach, that really is playing with nothing to lose, right? Their season is over. They're playing for pride. They're playing for possibly roster spots. They're playing for possibly future jobs. But how dangerous is it to play a team like that when you're the Packers, who, again, keep in mind, have now lost, or before today, back-to-back home games, and we're on the road and have a big-time slate of schedules of games coming up within the division? How tough is it to play a team like that really has nothing to lose?
No, and I tell you one thing, we talked about a couple of things. Actually, Peter brought it up about how's Jameis Winston going to play? And I tell you what, I mean, the guy's been in the league for 9-10 years now.
35 and 52 now as a starter.
You know what though? He threw the ball well. He stood in the pocket really, really well. He delivered some really tight balls. So I was impressed with the guy. I really was. And I didn't know that he had 25,000 yards passing.
Yeah. And Drew Brees. Yeah. Drew Brees was on the broadcast with him as well. He was teammates, obviously, with him in New Orleans. So I thought that was pretty good for, to kind of have that insight into who Jameis is. But a lot of Packers fans throughout the course of the week a little bit worried about this one and just that bump that Jameis and possibly interim head coach Mike Kafka was going to get in this one. But I think too, Coach, the Packers in this one, I think it's also worth noting a lot of what they prepped for in the week kind of went out the window in the first half because you lost Jordan Love early with the shoulder. He takes a hit trying to scramble and get some yards. And so you lose Jordan Love, and then you lose Josh Jacobs in this one. And now you're kind of throwing everything out the door that you worked on throughout the course of the week. Obviously that changed a little bit as Jordan Love came back into the game. But how did you think Matt LaFleur handled this one? How did you think the Packers offense handled this one? Because it's no secret. You know this as being on the show last week, Matt LaFleur under the microscope in Green Bay. So how did you think the offense, how did you think Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love and company handled the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of this game?
Well, anytime that you want to have flow in your offense or rhythm in your offense, that's great. And everybody wants that, but those drops just kill you. It just kills your rhythm as being a play caller. I think it just as far as the quarterback was putting the ball where it needed to be, but the guys weren't catching them. So we had 5 drops, right, in the first
Coach,
half.
I'm not gonna lie. I've lost count. I
was super surprised, Brandon. I was really super surprised that had happened. But I'm going to tell you one thing. We had this conversation last Wednesday about what would happen if Malik went in there, right? Remember we had that conversation last Wednesday?
Yeah, we did.
But you know what? There was a plan for him. So on that game sheet,
it's funny you bring this up because I wanted to actually ask you this. So continue on.
On that game sheet that he had plays for Malik. That's what they have. So he gets into that deal, and they had that they ran a zone read. Tight end came across and he was kicking out the end and bluffed him, and the quarterback followed the tight end on it. It was a big run, and I mean, he really showed his athleticism. Malik did, but that was good coaching by LaFleur to have him have a little package for him, because what we were talking about last week is what makes you feel comfortable? What can I call you'll feel good about? And I wonder if they had that conversation, with Jordan and Malik this week.
The Packers getting the 27-20 victory. We're breaking it down here on the Locked On Packers post-game squad show. When you look at the backup quarterback coming in, Coach, and obviously the Packers didn't prepare, or I shouldn't say prepare, but they didn't plan, that Jordan Love was going to get hurt in this one. Throughout the course of the week, is Malik Willis, the backup quarterback, in your time in Green Bay, your time in coaching, how much of that is put into the game plan? Like, hey, if we lose starter A, we got to go to backup plan B. Like, how much is actually planned throughout the course? And keep in mind, too, add this, Packers played on Monday night, so they were coming off of a shorter week leading into this week. But how much game planning, how much preparation is the backup quarterback getting in case of a potential injury like we saw today with Jordan Love?
I'll tell you that what he had on his play sheet has been on his play sheet for the last probably 3-4 weeks. It's like, what are we going to call if he has to go in, right? Because they have different skill sets, right? And it's not going to be the same thing. But I thought that LaFleur gave him a chance to succeed and to keep moving the offense. So I really thought that was really an important point. And the thing is, he didn't get any reps with the ones. That the number one quarterback gets every rep in practice, and the number two quarterback or the number 2 or 3, they run the scout team or the look team. So he was playing Jameis Winston all week. Malik was, so to get the defense ready to play. Another thing that was interesting, Brandon, was, hey, we're going to run the ball, and we ran the ball, I thought, pretty well in the first half. And that was one of the things that we talked about on the show on Wednesday as well, is that they're not a good run defense.
Yep.
And they weren't in the first half, but they did a lot better in the second half. What would we had 128 yards rushing,
128 yards rushing, 23 rush attempts, which honestly, I mean, I thought was a good amount. Like, Jordan Love was feeling himself, coach, in that second half, right? He was feeling good. I know for the majority of Packer fans, they're still kind of on the fence. Not myself. I know not Peter, and I don't want to speak for Peter, who's not here, who took his kid to his first Packer game there in New York. But a lot of us are mostly, content and with our decision that we absolutely are backing Jordan Love. We think he's the future. He's obviously shown it, right? Another late comeback win for the Packers, less than 5 minutes, coach, and they come back and Jordan Love leads them on a touchdown drive. I will say this about the offense, and I will say this about Matt LaFleur, and I think you and I were talking about it in a little bit of the group chat. The Giants were getting a lot of penetration up the middle of the Packers offensive line. Now, Sean Ryan made his first, start. He played center last against Philly when Elton Jenkins went down. Jordan Morgan, you can make the argument, is not playing at his natural position at right guard. So a couple of guys sort of almost out of position. I was, and I asked this to you, and I'm like, why aren't they moving the pocket a little bit? Like, why aren't they doing a couple? You're running the ball, because to your point, the Packers, 128 yards on the ground, 23 rush attempts, 5.5 yards per carry today for Green Bay. I thought there was a moment, and there certainly had a few of them, where the play action boot, was obviously there. The keeper, Jordan Love, ran early in this game to kind of get them on a short 3rd and 1 where they would eventually convert. I just thought for the most part, I was fine. I was content with the way that the game was called, offensively speaking, and Matt LaFleur. And I thought Matt LaFleur today too, coach. And to our point, we got to pat ourselves on the back, because we said on Wednesday, like the creativity is just not there yet with LaFleur, and he showed it today. I thought he had a couple of great play designs, certainly running the ball. Bo Melton on the big, I think it was a 16-yard
that was really big
end around. So you saw a little bit more creativity from Matt LaFleur, but I thought, man, the Giants are getting a lot of pressure on Jordan Love up the middle. Like, let's move the pocket a little bit. And we did not see that a ton. Certainly, we didn't see that in the second half.
I'll tell you what you did see, though, is a bunch of play action. We might not have moved the pocket, Brandon, but there was a lot of play action passes in that ball game, with getting extra guys in protection. So there's not a lot of guys in the route. So that's kind of the downfall on that. But they did use a lot of play action today, which a little bit more than what they have been. But you're right, they hadn't moved the pocket. And when they move the pocket, it's always a naked or a keep is right. How they move the pocket, So, I mean, they don't have like a sprint out package. I haven't seen that all season. Some teams have that, just to move the quarterback.
And that's just getting the ball and moving left or right.
It's called
fake
sprint,
or anything.
Right, or sprint left. And a lot of times you sprint a 2-receiver route. Right. But we haven't seen that this year at all with them. And that's okay. That's really not who they are.
I thought it was an opportunity to just kind of, and the one that really sticks out to my brain, coach, is they called the play action boot early in that game, and Jordan Love makes a play and is moving to his right, comes back to his left and finds Dobbs, and that was one of Dobbs's drops. And I don't know if that's where LaFleur is getting into a little bit of gun shy, afraid to kind of do it and come back to that and not want to cause another, mental error, which we saw a handful of them come throughout the course of this game. But I also wonder if Jordan Love's injury played any factor in not wanting him to kind of move around and not. You saw at one point in the game he wanted to take off there, and I think it was late in the third quarter, one of the touchdown drives the Packers had in that second half, and held it back, and then he found, I believe it was Emmanuel Wilson for a screen pass. But Coach, if I told you, let's say you didn't watch the game, Coach, and I told you, and I know you watched the game, but if I told you that the Giants held the ball for almost 12 more minutes than the Packers, if I told you that the Giants ran the ball for more yards, if I told you that the Giants threw the ball for more yards in the air, if I told you they outgained the Packers in total yards, and if I told you they ran 18 more plays than the Packers in this one, how do you think this one would have played out?
I would go, you're crazy. Here's the thing. you would have been on the top of Brewer Park, Miller Park.
You know what I mean?
Try to throw yourself right off the top of that deal if we had lost this game.
I Packer fans are going to be upset, and they're going to wake up, or they're right now they're
Brandon. They shouldn't be.
And that's kind of, I'm torn on it, Coach. I'm a little bit torn on it. The first drive for New York, I mean, it was like slicing a piece of cheese, literally. Giants going right down the field. The Packers, again, Carrington Valentine dropping an interception. The Packers defensive backs. Carrington Valentine dropped 2. Keyshawn Nixon dropped 1. Javon Bullard had 1 and then got drilled by his own guy. That's 4 off the top of my head. And I think Evan Williams is the guy that secured the interception late in this one that all but sealed it. But it just felt like there was a lot of meat left on the bone, defensively speaking, for this team. I think Edrin Cooper on that 3rd and 12 screen. I mean, he has. I think it was Tracy. Big. I think it was Tracy in the back. It was a 2-yard loss. If he holds onto that tackle, he goes off for 20 yards. And then 2 plays later, Coach, they're in the red zone. So it's this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde defense that we saw against the Philadelphia Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl a handful of months ago and have Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley. And we see them completely lock down the Eagles, and then the Giants. It felt like we're kind of just had the Packers defensive number. Now, a lot of that is the Packers had opportunities in this one, and defensively speaking, just didn't execute. That's the word that's going to be used. I'm sure it's probably being used in the post-game press conferences and the locker room availability as we speak, but it's simple, Coach. You make those plays. Heck, make one of those plays, 2 of those plays, and you're probably looking at a 2-score Packers victory today instead of a 27-20 that we got. But again, they're just not executing to the standard that they need to be executing. And that's why I think fans, and that's where I think the frustration lies with this team.
Well, I think, it's never going to be perfect, Brandon. It's never going to be perfect. And like I said, a win is a win. And, they played well enough to win the game. And I'm going to say this, I was going to say this for later, but when the game's on the line, I learned this a long, long time ago, playing all these years and coaching all these years. When it comes nut cutting time, you think of players, you don't think of plays. And they did. They went right to Watson, and he was the guy, right? I mean, that wasn't an easy catch that he made on that. I mean, it was not. He was gloved, and
which is amazing because the drive before that, Coach, he drops what should have been a big explosive gain down the sideline on 3rd and 1, and who knows, the Packers might have iced the game from that point forward. So it's again, that kind of goes to the hot and cold, the up and down of this team. Is like you just make the plays that are in front of you, and the outcome is going to be a lot easier, or it's going to be in favor of you. We probably see a different outcome against the Carolina Panthers. We probably see a different outcome against the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. But it's just the little things with this team that are they're just constantly getting in their own way.
Right. But the thing is, if you look like up and down this whole league, and we talk about this all the time, anybody can win any week. You just can. And the thing is, the season, there are so many ebbs and flows just in a game. And there just is. But that's what makes it exciting. If it was always just great, we'd have nothing to talk about, Brandon. We wouldn't be sitting.
We may be a little we may be a little bit happier though, Coach. If it was all great,
I know. But you know what though? Again, I see it a little bit different perspective rather than than as a fan. But I kind of like being a fan because whether we win or we lose, I'm still going to have a pretty good day. You know what I'm saying? But
well, I'm glad for you, Coach. That makes one of us. Because
I know, but that's the difference, though.
Let me ask you.
I care if they win or lose because the Packers are my team, obviously, but I'm not like just crushed. If the outcome's not the way I want it.
Let me ask you this before we move on to our turning points in a Packers 27-20 victory. Josh Jacobs, we mentioned him and Jordan Love going out in this one. Josh Jacobs obviously was the only one out of the two to not return in this one with a knee injury. Coach, he accounted for, going into this game, 26% of the Packers' entire offensive yards this season. So you're talking about a guy just a tick over a quarter of your offensive production. I think that's going to get lost in the weeds a little bit, that the Packers lost Josh Jacobs, and certainly the Giants defense coming into this one, running game wise, second to last in yards per game, dead last in yards per carry. That was a kind of under the radar injury. I shouldn't say under the radar because it's Josh Jacobs and he's one of your premier players, but I don't think fans understand that, when they lost him and the way that they were attacking that Giants defense, you mentioned it with the play action and running the ball effectively. That was a very, very big loss that kind of went under the rug a little bit.
Yeah. Well, just think about, you just said 25%, right?
Yep. 26.
Okay. 26%. I'm going to go throw another name in there. And, it's one of my favorite players too, is Kraft. I mean, you talk about 25%. How much did Kraft give? And the tight ends that are in there, Musgrave and Fitzpatrick, they're good players, but they're not Kraft's level. They're just not. And you're not getting the production because we had a couple drops. I think Musgrave dropped one or so in the first half, but I mean,
I don't know how they ruled that other one a fumble or an incomplete. I thought it was a fumble. He almost had two fumbles today, Coach.
Right.
One of them, it was a catch and he fumbled it out of bounds.
So just again, let's plug in the other guy. And I know I'm just probably saying, but let's go ahead and plug the other guy in there, Kraft.
Yep.
It's a lot different. It's a lot different look, but I tell you, I thought did well was Wilson did a good job running the ball. He runs hard.
He did. Brandon. Yeah. And it's a different type of runner too, right?
He's more slashing.
He's more slasher. He's got a little bit more of a quicker step or two out of there. I think Josh Jacobs this year has been catching the ball great. I love Emmanuel Wilson out of the backfield catching the ball as well. You mentioned Musgrave, and I know we're a little bit behind where we need to be clockwise, but I got to ask you this because I put this out on Twitter as well. I feel like, Coach, they're just not using Musgrave the way that they should be using him. And I think they're trying to use him. I don't want to say to be Tucker Kraft because there is only one Tucker Kraft, but they're trying to use him in the same way that they did use Tucker Kraft. You're seeing him on a couple flats. You're seeing him, just kind of curl a little bit, right near the line of scrimmage. I think Musgrave is a guy that you got to push the ball downfield to. You got to use him in the seams. You get him one-on-one with a linebacker or a safety. I mean, I think I'm going to take the Musgrave, to win that battle or at least have the ball fall incomplete. But it feels like, from what you see, how you've coached, your experiences, it feels like they're sort of just kind of misusing him a little bit.
Well, the thing is, we just had him for this is our second, third week, and I think they're still trying to figure out how he fits into the grand scheme.
Yeah, but he's been up here, Coach. He's been up here, Coach.
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. That's a good point. But, I just you've seen him a little bit different light than I have because I haven't been around the program as long as you have in what they drafted him higher than Kraft, right?
A round before Kraft. Yep.
Yeah.
A round before him. Second round.
But he's got to step up too, though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, and 100%.
He's got to step up, and I didn't see anything down the field with him at all.
I don't think I did either. And that's
I don't think it was a route more than 10 yards that he ran.
And I think we talked about it on Wednesday. And that's sort of the frustration because if these teams are going to play too high, and I don't have the film in front of me, and I'm not a film guy to even sit here and lie to you, but it feels like if these teams are going to play too high safety is a great opportunity. And maybe I'm wrong, Coach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, hey, push the ball in the middle of the field. Get kind of either sit in that middle of the field where it's wide open seemingly. And Jordan Love has been known he can get that ball over those linebackers. We saw it against the Eagles on Monday night. We've seen it throughout the course of the season in his career, but it feels like it's just kind of an opportunity in the middle of the field that the Packers just haven't tried to use him yet there. And I don't know. It just leaves me scratching my head a little bit. I don't think pushing Luke Musgrave out on the flat for a screen is his strength.
Right. Well, the thing is, if you're talking about cover two, let's talk about just cover two or cover three, right? Cover two is just two high safeties, right? Nobody in the middle of the field. Cover three are two corners and a safety.
Yep.
With one guy in the middle of the field, right? So what's open? So if it's single high or cover three, the seams between the corner and the free safety are open, right? And then what you have, if it's like cover two, it's a read. Okay, a read by the tight end. So if it is cover two, rather than running a seam route, Musgrave or whoever the tight end runs a 12-yard in cut in the middle of the field. So that's how you can go ahead and use him. And it's called a middle read by the tight end in the terms.
Well, they got plenty of time to figure it out with Luke Musgrave. No more Tucker Kraft, unfortunately, for the Packers. However, Green Bay getting a much-needed victory, 27-20 over the Giants. They improve to 6-3-1 on their season. When did this one turn for the Pack? We break down our turning points of the game right after this. Today's a victorious edition of the Locked On Packers post-game squad show is brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no at Mint Mobile. Their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no coverages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. They make it very, very simple. All plans come with a high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. Makes it super, super easy. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch right now at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Once again, that's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Upfront payment of $45 is required. A limited time to new customers offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plans. Tax and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Once again, mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Thank you for making Locked On Packers your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. A big-time win for the Packers. And I know a lot of fans are probably rolling their eyes, Coach, saying a big-time win over the Giants on the road against an interim head coach, a new starter. The new coach bump is real. We heard it all week long. And this one, Coach, was kind of all over the place. You mentioned it before we went on the show that if you liked football, it was an entertaining game for the most part, and certainly it was. New York jumped out to an early lead. The Packers responded by scoring 13 in the second quarter, but then the game goes to halftime tied, and then we see the teams kind of go back and forth in the third and the fourth quarter. Coach, I'll turn it over to you. Your turning point in a Packers 27-20 victory.
Well, mine's at the end of the game, and I don't want to be Captain Obvious here, but here's the deal, guys. When I do the show, I do it by series, so I know exactly what they're doing by every series. But so the series was the Giants had just scored, okay, and because we had a face mask and it went down there, and Hodgins made a couple plays, but the series after that, Savion Williams on a 3rd and 10 was as big a catch as you're going to make. And it was a 38-yard, and he just threw it up. But here's
Coach,
the thing.
Coach, would you tell Jordan Love to make that throw in practice?
Oh, no, I wouldn't. I would not. But I mean, sometimes you just have to throw them up. But that was a 3rd and 10.
Yeah, it was
right?
big. It was a big point, a massive point in the game.
But and then the holding call by Wiley,
which
right? He grabbed it.
He did, but that's the little thing with this team. You didn't even need to.
Right.
The play's already past him. It's already Emmanuel Wilson had turned the corner already. He's probably already getting tackled.
That was a big holding call. Huge.
It was.
Because that Wilson did. He had a really, really nice run, and that was negated by the holding call. But he's your 3rd tight end too. Fourth actually.
And I thought overall he was pretty good though. Josh Wiley, that is.
Yeah. I mean, he had his first touchdown. I thought that was really cool for him. But Savion Williams with the 3rd and 10 catch was, in my mind, was the turning point of the game. And again, I don't want to be Captain Obvious there. There's a couple things that I thought were, but that would probably be the biggest one.
this is going to sound a little bit crazy, and I'm going to have two turning points, and I know I'm making up for the loss of Peter today, who, again, we didn't kick Peter off the show. He was at the game with his son, who attended his first Packer game. So now him and his son have to go to every Packer game from here on out because they won. So I'm going to give you 1A and 1B for me, Coach, if that's okay, if you don't mind.
No, I might have another one too after you.
1A for me was Jordan Love went down and Malik Willis came into the game. And it really got this team going. That included a 12-play drive, 62 yards. Took just under a few seconds, under 7.5 minutes of a touchdown scoring drive. I still, Coach, do not know how Malik Willis made that throw, A, and B, I don't know how Christian Watson held on to that ball. So you talk about some strong hands there for number 9 for the green and gold, holding on to that touchdown pass from Malik Willis. I thought Malik coming into this game, Coach, kept the train on the tracks, right? A big 17-yard run that gets him into scoring drive, a handful of different completions. What a luxury it is. You can say a lot of things about Brian Gutekunst. You won't hear me say anything negatively about him, but his roster construction has come into question, and I won't really necessarily, disagree with it, certainly when it comes to the offensive line. But, Coach, how good does it feel to have a guy like Malik Willis be able to come into the game and you don't literally skip a beat? In fact, instead of punting, you're scoring a touchdown with your backup quarterback who moved the ball with ease over that Giants defense. Now, again, we mentioned it before, it's not a really good run defense, but nonetheless, for him to come in cold and not skip a beat and get the Packers back on track. Like, what happens? Let's play the hypothetical game. What happens if Malik comes in and has a 3-and-out or a turnover, or, it doesn't get anything going and the Packers have to punt? The Giants are up 7-0. They have all the momentum, the momentum going forward. And maybe Jordan Love's coming into a game where he's down 2 scores already. Malik Willis keeping them on track after Jordan Love went down was a huge point in this game. Did it turn the game for the Packers where they won the game? No, but I felt like it really kept the needle moving for this Packers offense, who was scratching and clawing for anything, any momentum, Coach, offensively speaking. And then I'll give you my point B, and then I'll let you have the floor. Micah Parsons coming to play today. It was a Giants offensive line that, coming into this week, 3 of their last 4 games have given up 4 or more sacks. And I thought Micah Parsons today, I think technically he had 1.5 sacks on the day. I would have given him a full sack. And this is my turning point B, was the turnover on downs in the third quarter. Remember, the Packers were up 19-13 in the third quarter. Coach, this was a 16-play drive that ended with a turnover on downs, and Micah Parsons on 4th down, finally getting to Jameis Winston. I put it on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. I said, man, I'm telling you, somebody on his defense has got to step up. And I kid you not, 2 plays later, Micah comes through with the sack and gets the defense off the field. And then the Packers, I think, went 3-and-out right after that. But nonetheless, he stepped up in that moment, kept the Giants out of the end zone, kept the Packers with that lead going forward. So 1A, Malik Willis coming in and doing his thing. Thank you, Brian Gutekunst, for going in. I think it was a 6th rounder, maybe it was a 7th rounder for Malik Willis out of Tennessee. And he has been, Coach, last year they don't win. They don't win a game if Malik Willis is probably here or not here. And Jordan Love had that MCL injury. And then this year, obviously, Jordan Love coming out and Malik Willis stepping in and keeping their heads above water and did just enough, did more than enough, I should say, for this Packers offense.
Yeah, don't you think that's just a huge luxury to have a guy like that and feel comfortable? Because he did play a lot last year, when Love went down. But I think that is just a huge luxury. And the thing is, he went into the game and it wasn't too big for him, because he was there.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I was really it's not the turning point, but I wanted to bring this one up too. Is like the first series of the second half, right? The first play, we had a protection problem, right? And he had to get it. And then we got the PI that changed the field position down there. And I thought that was pretty good. And then Wiley got the touchdown on that. But answering in the second half where they didn't wait. So they got the ball back in the second half. First series, went right down the field and scored. So that was really big, I thought.
And I thought, again, like, there's a lot of things you could say about Matt LaFleur. I certainly won't argue with you on probably 90% of it. But I thought today, you brought up the Wiley touchdown, Coach, during that drive. A great play design, right?
Yeah.
Christian Watson, that's a legal screen, a legal pick. within that 1 yard of line of scrimmage. I mean,
yeah, those looked flagrant, didn't it? But
and he was, he was wide open.
Yeah.
Wiley was
Yeah.
for the touchdown from Jordan Love. And that really kind of got them going in that second half, because again, they go into halftime, they're tied 13 apiece. I know for me, coach, I'm sitting there and I know you look at it from a coaching lens. I look at it from a panic fans lens, but I'm like, man, 13-13 against this, like it. And it felt like it was weird too. Like for the Packers to go into the half tied, you're like, I don't know. Should I be happy? Should I be upset? I don't know. Both, I guess, is kind of accurate, but it felt like in moments the Packers played better. In moments the Giants played better. In moments the Packers didn't execute. The Giants, for the most part, when they had their opportunities in this one, did execute, certainly in the first half. But it was a weird game from a Packers fan standpoint that it felt like I don't really know if we should be thrilled with this or upset with this, because on to the defense of the Green Bay Packers, when you lose your starting quarterback, you lose your running back, who's only second in the NFL behind Jonathan Taylor with touchdowns. It's a big loss. Like, that's a big underrated loss. And they found a way to navigate that. We talked about it. Malik Willis coming in, Matt LaFleur designing the creativity. You mentioned the Josh Wiley touchdown, like getting guys involved. I will say this again, I'm going to keep saying it, coach. And I know this is the Packer way, just not enough opportunities for Matthew Golden. I'm still not satisfied with the Matthew Golden. I don't want to say game plan. And I know he's coming off of the shoulder injury, but again, I'm looking at the box score right now. Matthew Golden had 3 targets. I just don't think that's enough.
Yeah. 2 of those were go balls though.
And the one was a pass interference. So I should say that was a pass interference, and good on Matthew for coming back. It felt like it was a tick of an underthrow, and he came back to get the ball. But I put it on Twitter too. We saw a handful of drops from Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks. I forgot who else. Luke Musgrave had a couple of drops. I said, feed the offense through Christian Watson and Matthew Golden. Now, it's obvious Christian Watson is right now, I don't really necessarily know if it was any argument from Packer fans, but he's your best receiver, 4 receptions, 46 yards, and had the 2 biggest touchdowns of the game. The late one there in the fourth quarter, and the first one as well from Malik Willis, as we talked about it. But the offense has got to go through, I think, 9-0. Yeah. Romeo Doubs, I will give him the benefit of just having a bad game, but man, you can't have the amount of drops that Romeo Doubs had today.
No, he can't. He's a lot better player than that. We all know that. And sometimes you have games, and I guarantee he'll be on that jugs machine.
Well, get the cornerbacks on the jug machine, coach.
I'll tell you this, and we laugh about this, right? Why are they secondary guys? Because they couldn't catch and they weren't wide receivers. That's right. It's you know what? That's the honest to God truth. But you know what? I guarantee you. I mean, those guys work jugs. Before practice, after practice, in between. If in between the scout team and that. So those guys get that, and you know what? That'll be an emphasis this week. So
I'll say this too. I don't want to be like completely positive, because there's a lot of stuff to be negative about in a Packers win, 27-20. And I'll take a road win, coach. I'll say any win on the road is a good win. I don't care who you're playing. If you're a Packers fan that is not satisfied with a 7-point victory, by the way, the Packers were 7-point favorites in this game, so they covered. I mean, that's Vegas thought they were only worth 7 points. They got 7 points, and that's what they did. But I will say this. Micah Parsons was good. He obviously iced the game in this one, had a big sack. He was part of my turning point. I need more from Rashawn Gary, coach. I need more from Rashawn Gary. I know he's at 7.5 sacks, and I know he got off to a quick start in this season. But when you have Micah Parsons, who's literally getting double and triple teamed, I need guys, and they'll eventually get Lucas Van Ness. I think LBN will probably come back next week. I need to see more out of Rashawn Gary. Like, you got your contract. You got the guy you needed on the other side. Yeah. I need to see, and we can talk about, other players on that defense that need to step up. Keyshawn Nixon's part of that. Quay Walker, I thought, had an okay game. We've seen him definitely play better. Edgerrin Cooper was not great today, had a missed tackle that would have forced a punt and possibly taken points off the board because the Giants eventually scored. But they also don't make Rashawn Gary money. I need to see more out of 52, coach. Like, if Micah's going to get double and triple teamed, the other guy's got to step up. Yeah,
the thing is, and Parsons gets chipped almost all the time, right? Whether it's a tight end delay to go out or the back, and it leaves Gary one-on-one, and he's got to make hay. I mean, they can't chip everybody, right? So he does need to step up a little bit more than what he's done in the last few
And
weeks.
I don't even know if he Okay, he did. He had 3 tackles today. Rashawn Gary did 2 solo tackles. That's it.
I didn't hear his name, though. Did you?
I didn't. That's what I mean. Like that. I did hear his name. He caused the false start. I think on the first drive or maybe the second drive for the New York Giants. But like, I need more than 3 tackles, coach. I'm sorry. I just do. Like if Micah, and again, you're not, not a ton of opportunities. The Giants only threw the ball 29 times. And before, Carolina only threw it 21 times. Like, Philly didn't throw it a ton, but like, when you have those opportunities and it's third and distance, and give credit to Mike Kafka, who, again, the interim head coach, Brian Daboll, fired last week, and Kafka steps in. They called the perfect screens at the perfect time, which is, what good offensive coordinators typically like to do. But like those big passing downs where it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, that's when I need, when Rashawn Gary is going to get, a one-on-one, Micah Parsons is going to draw all the attention. I need Rashawn Gary to come through. I need to see him produce just a little bit more.
I didn't see those guys bring more than 5 guys today. Packers. I didn't see more than five rushers today.
I think they brought a couple. They brought a couple of pressures.
That's what I'm saying. But they brought 5, like maybe 1 linebacker.
Maybe
I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But
well, and that's Halfley, right? Like he's not. Yeah. That's kind of who he is, and the game he likes to call. But it was definitely. Some meat definitely left on the bone for the Packers defense. They come through when they need to come through. Evan Williams all but securing the game for the Packers with that interception. Again, Green Bay getting the victory 27-20, 6-3-1 on the season. What play, what sequence, what decision, what caught the attention of Coach Jags? He takes us to class coming up right after this. Today's victorious edition of the Locked On Packers Squad Show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action other than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It just keeps every game a little bit more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving you, new customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Let me read that for you again. If you are new to FanDuel and you sign up using the FanDuel app, FanDuel.com, you'll get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. A victorious edition of the Locked On Packers Squad Show today, thankfully, because we've had a rough last couple of weeks here in Titletown as the Packers break their 2-game skid, beating the Giants 27-20. One of my favorite segments, because I love this, because I learned something new seemingly after every game from Coach Jags, who coached in the NFL for many, many years. Coach Brett Favre, coached Aaron Rodgers, was up there in Green Bay. We call this Coach's Classroom. Coach, I turn it over to you. What play, what sequence, what decision, what in today's victory caught your attention in a 27-20 victory?
I tell you, and it's really a lost art, but what the Giants did today, they started throwing some screen passes. Okay. So here's what a screen pass is, right? Especially, and when do you call it? You call it when people are getting pressure on you, even if it's a 4-man pressure, right? And the ball is thrown, and a lot of times it used to be thrown behind the line of scrimmage, but outside the pocket. And what the offensive line does is they go ahead and you have to get a bump on the defensive lineman. You have to do that first and then let them through. Okay, the quarterback has to fade a little bit and throw it to the back. As the linemen release down the field, because they can be down the field because the screener or the back, he's behind the line of scrimmage, so you can have linemen down the field. And they did a really good job. Now, we did have one dead to rights. I think, Brandon, you already talked about it.
Yep. It was I think there was a blitz called in that one as well.
It was. That's why why those screen passes are so good to have versus a really like a pressure defensive front. Let those guys rush up the field, go ahead and stop them with one punch, and then release into the flats, and then have the back behind them. But he was dead to rights, but it's still they ran some screens today that I thought were pretty damn good.
I don't want to get any hyperbolic on that screen that you're talking about, Coach. It was 3rd and 12. If Edgerrin Cooper makes that tackle, Packers defense had it defended very well. He was right there. If they make that tackle, the Giants eventually go down and score a touchdown. If he makes that tackle there, I mean, again, not to sound too crazy, but like it might not be as close of a ball game. We might not be biting our nails at the end of that one and our heart pounding through our chest, because it might be a 13, 14 point, game where we're kind of relaxing at the end. That's the thing with this team. And I think that's the thing, Coach, that you can speak on better than anybody can, certainly better than I can. With this team, it's the little things. It's the tiny, tiny, tiny little things, the hidden yardage of a game. For example, like Keyshawn Nixon has Tracy in the backfield for what should have been a 2-yard loss. Instead, he gets a 2-yard gain, and changes probably what the next play call is for Kafka and the Giants. Like, it's the dropped interceptions. It's the holding when you're not really, the play's kind of already past you. Like you're committing a penalty that doesn't need to be committed. And then you mentioned it, missing the tackle. It's just the little things with this team that I think frustrates fans the most. That's the little things. And again, how much of that is coached throughout the course of the season, Coach? I guess you're the better one to answer that than me talking around it. Like, you're sitting in the film room and you're like, hey, we can't have this, but what are they doing in preparation for that?
You talk about the details of it.
Just a little, yes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But the thing is, it is a game of inches. Damn it. I mean, like I said, if Coop makes that play, you're right. That thing could change. That could change the deal. But I think you have to keep stressing details, and you have to keep coaching details all the time. And we talk about this every show. You get what you emphasize. The drops are unacceptable. We can't have that. I don't think we had a lot of penalties today, did we?
We had 5. The Giants had 6, so it wasn't a terrible.
It wasn't a bad,
but it was the timing of them, right? Romeo Dobbs, for example, we talk about the hidden yardage of a game that I just mentioned. Instead of I think he had a 12, 13-yard punt return, and the Packers had the ball that would have been the 39. There's a block in the back, and then they're back at the 16. So instead of starting at the 40, where you're about 2 first downs away from field goal range, although today, and we'll discuss the kicker, that's going to be the next conversation we have. But again, it's the little things with this team that you just are again, they're taking 2 steps forward and then 2 steps back, and then 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. And it's just like, if we could just keep those 2 steps and then take another step and then another half step and then kind of just work our way to finding our groove. And speaking of groove, Brandon McManus, coach in this one, ruled out on Saturday, downgraded with potentially quad. Lucas Haversick, who a lot of Packers fans were pounding the table saying, hey, get this guy in, a 61-yarder in Arizona. He was 10 for 10. Coach, then they throw him into literally the wind. Because Matt LaFleur in his post-game press conference saying he's still not sure where the wind was coming from, which direction, because it was really bad. And for people that were in attendance, I know a couple of people that were there, including Peter. Peter, not here today. He didn't get fired. He's not here because he took his son to his first Packers game there at MetLife Stadium in a Packers 27-20 victory. But you know the old adage, Coach, when you have 2 kickers, you have what?
None. Or 2.
You're right, because it's like, okay, what is this team doing with Brandon McManus and Lucas Haversick? Now, Brandon McManus, if you listen to the television broadcast, telling Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, the Monday night crew against the Eagles, that was the first week he felt somewhat healthy. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Why were you kicking then the weeks before? Yeah. And then this weekend, they downgrade him to doubtful, and then they throw Lucas Haversick into the wind at MetLife Stadium. Yeah. And it was a bad performance from again, I don't want to say bad performance. The wind obviously played a factor in this one. But what are your thoughts on the Packers kicking situation or the lack thereof?
Well, the thing is, Haversick came in, performed about as good as you could perform, as a kicker when he was in there. And we've been saying it for weeks, Brandon. I go, you know what? That kid's not healthy.
You're talking about McManus, correct?
McManus, yeah. McManus is not healthy. He's just, there's something not right about it. And the thing is, I do believe, you mentioned this, I do believe he rushed himself back because Haversick did such a great job, and he didn't want to lose his job.
Well, and that's the thing, right? You ask anybody, Coach, you were there, you've been there. Like, if you don't do your job, you have to leave the team for 2 weeks, and somebody else goes in as the offensive coordinator and dials up 45 points in a game. They're probably looking at you and that guy like, hey, wait a minute. And that was no different than what we saw with Haversick coming in, which is funny because the Giants also had him on a tryout and let him leave the building without a deal. And then you comes in and he has a 61-yarder. He breaks Mason Crosby's distance on an in-game field goal and then doesn't miss. And then McManus is like, you know what? I'm seeing what's happening and I'm going to push myself to play. And it never felt like a very solid situation. Like it felt like the details of that were just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. And missing extra points. You can't do that.
Well, and today, do you give Haversick the benefit of the doubt today? Because the weather was,
you know what though? It's like that. It was like that for the Giants too. I mean, it's like when they say like, well, the weather's, it is what it is. Right. And that they tried kicking one guys from Korea, the kicker.
Who was also in Atlanta for a while.
Yeah. He missed one really bad too. Today,
and he did. Yeah. And there was other one too. I think it was an extra point. It was an extra point.
It was.
Whelan was holding the laces towards the kicker.
Oh yeah. I'm going to, you know what though? I'm going to, because like there's like that, this wasn't a turning point, but just so the first half or the second half. So it was Green Bay's ball went right down and scored. Then New York was in it, 16 play, and then you had to deal with the Parsons. That next series, Green Bay went 3 and out, and Watson missed a go ball, right?
Yep.
But Whelan came in and kicked a 60-yard punt. I mean, just boomed it. So you're talking about the wind. Well, was he with it? Was he against it? If he was against it, probably not a 60-yarder. And then he did the same thing the last punt of the game. Just
underrated part of the game.
It is. And sometimes those type of things get lost in a win.
Sure.
But I thought that was huge. I really do.
Yeah, because at that point too, Coach, you're talking about like the last part of the game, as you mentioned it. Let's say he has a 40-yard punt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shanks it, maybe it's not great. And you give the Giants the ball on the 40-yard line, or near midfield, like 20 seconds is an eternity in the NFL now. I know they didn't have any timeouts, but not only did he boot it, but he took a ton of time off. They took half the clock off of what was left for the Giants. So it certainly was an underrated part of this game. The Packers getting the win 27-20 over the Giants. It wasn't easy nor pretty, but boy, it certainly does feel good to be back on the winning side of things. And it's been a few weeks. We've always handed out game balls after Packer games, but it's been a few weeks for victory game balls. We'll hand those out right after this. Jordan Love gets hurt in this one. Josh Jacobs gets hurt in this one. Quay Walker got hurt in this one. Add the list is, Coach, the injury list is going to look like a Walgreens receipt after we get through with this one. But the Packers do hold on for the win. Matt LaFleur in his post-game press conference saying it's never good when a player doesn't return, but it didn't seem as severe as things like Elton Jenkins and Tucker Kraft. So hopefully good things going forward for Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love went out in this one with a shoulder injury. He did return. Coach, I'll turn it over to you. I'll give you the first chance at the game ball for this week as the Packers get the victory 27-20 over the Giants. Who you handing your game ball to?
Yeah, again, I hate being Captain Obvious. I mean, I really do, but
sometimes sometimes coaches just don't have a choice. Like it is what it is.
You're right. I thought Watson played his butt off today, and he made contested catches. That one, that the touchdown he caught down there. I mean,
Coach, I think that's the frustrating part with Watson, and I love Watson.
But just came back though.
You see him catch that in double coverage. You're talking about the touchdown in the corner. Yes. And then he drops the goal ball that is right in his arms on that 3rd and 1. And you're like, man, if we could just, you're right. And I think he's the best receiver that you have right now. I think the offense should flow through number 9, but it's the inconsistencies that drive fans nuts.
Yeah. But I think he's and again, I didn't know him like you guys knew him, and just watching him, he's a difference maker. 6'4", 210, can run like the wind. And the guy does have good hands. And a lot of those balls he had today were contested. They weren't like wide open, and a 50-50 ball, you have to be able to win as a receiver. And if you're a DB, you got to win it as a DB, so, but I really like him. I really do. And he stood out the most to me today.
It's a different offense, coach, when Watson's on the field versus when he's not on the field. It's a completely different offense. I know they put up good numbers, in week 1, in week 2 against the Cowboys before Watson returned, but it's completely different. And then you float the idea of, man, when Jaden Reed gets back and when Matthew Golden gets fed those opportunities, and maybe this can really kind of turn for the Green Bay Packers. But my game ball is going to Jordan Love. And again, will his stat line, knock your socks off? No, right? I mean, a 105 rating from Jordan Love, 174 yards, coach. But those throws, when they need to be made, Jordan Love, since he has taken over as the starter for our Green Bay Packers, he has delivered. He simply has delivered for this team. And you're down in this game. The wind is howling. Your receivers are dropping passes. Fans are calling for Matt LaFleur's head. No good vibes are happening. You don't have Josh Jacobs. You just lost in back-to-back weeks at home, by the way, and you're on the verge of your season is kind of in the balance, right? The Bears won today. The Lions play later tonight. If you lose that game, you drop to 5-4-1, and you're seemingly pretty much out of the race for the division, and you're probably out of the playoff picture, pending a few different outcomes. Jordan Love answering the bell. Under 5 minutes left to go. I think he threw that touchdown to Watson, who gets your game ball with just over 4 minutes in this game. But I thought Jordan Love, not his best performance, but I thought, man, he made some good throws. And his numbers aren't going to, again, be crazy. But if you take away half of those drops, coach, you're probably looking at a completely different stat line for Jordan Love. But if you want to look past the stat line, it's the throws that he made when the team needed him to make them the most. You mentioned your turning point was the Savion Williams. I think it was a 36-yard completion on a third and 10. That's a money down, man. Like, that's money down. Again, the Packers are the best team on third downs in the NFL. And guess what? Most of those third down conversions come from the quarterback's arm. And Jordan Love, again, part of that today. I thought Jordan Love, again, that touchdown throw, Wiley was wide open. Great play design to Matt LaFleur. But that touchdown throw to Christian Watson might not be talked enough about, but boy, that was an absolute dot in double coverage for number 10.
And how are quarterbacks evaluated? Do they win? And the thing is, you talked about the inconsistencies in the last couple games. They've all been fourth quarter games. So, and that's where the attention to detail really shows up. And when you're in games like that, that's where you have to come through.
As a coach, do you like these parts of the season for mid-November one-score games? You had a one-score game against the Philly. You had a one-score game against the Carolina Panthers. But what does this do? We got a few minutes here. What does this do for a team going into December? Really going, I mean, they're still got half of November, but going into parts of December where it's going to be all division games, leading up between the Vikings, the Vikings, the Lions, and the Bears a couple of times.
I think what it is throughout the season, when you look back at the season, it's your body of work, right? And this league, and it's so exciting. The NFL is so exciting, but it's a league of attrition as well. Like, we had just a ton of injuries today, but you know what? Other teams have those too.
Sure.
And that's what it ends up coming to, is really who can stay the most healthy down the line, because that's what matters. But everybody's in the same position. And the only time that you're always 100% is after your first snap of the season.
Sometimes you're not even that when you go
that's true. But all these games, road games, they all matter. And the thing is, we talked about this a bunch too, is like, you got to win all your home games, and we're -2 on that, but we're doing pretty good on the road. I think we've won every one but the tie game down in Dallas.
Yep, I was just going to get to that point. And we lost to the Browns on the road as well. So they lost that one as well. Right. So other than the tie in Dallas and the loss in Cleveland, they won in Arizona. They won at Pittsburgh, who, by the way, put up another funky number against the Bengals for that win today. So that win against the Steelers for the Packers looks better and better. And then obviously today's win on the road, a 27-20 victory. Any win on the road is a good win. You heard Coach. Friendly reminder, Locked On Packers Squad Show and Daily Show, free and available wherever you guys get audio podcasts, as well as over on YouTube. So if you're over on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that thumbs up. For Coach Jags and for myself, yes, Peter will still be here. He did not get fired again. I see a couple of people asking in the live chat. Peter took his son to the first game that his son has ever been to in the Packers won. So he will have you later tonight, and he will have you all week long. And then you'll get us, Coach Jags and Peter and myself, as we'll get you set for the Minnesota Vikings a week from now. Thanks to each and every one of you guys for tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Packers part of your day each and every single day. And as well, thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast. And as always, win, lose, or draw, but it certainly feels better after a 27-20 Packers win. Stay Locked On Packers.